AEW.com live recap of Monday Night Raw for December the 14th, 2020. This Sunday is the WWE TLC pay-per-view event. Let's go ahead and get started with this recap of Raw. Quick shout out to everybody watching, whether it's live or on demand. Thank you for watching. I very much appreciate it. We kicked off Raw with the dirt sheet, Miz and Morrison. Miz was in the ring. There was a ladder set up on the outside. There was a Christmas tree in the ring. Miz was ready to tell a story. It was the nightmare before TLC. And then you had AJ Styles and Omos appear. Omos was apparently going to sing, but Miz had the spotlight turned off of Omos. John Morrison then showed up in the ring. He was dressed like the character from Braveheart, mocking Drew McIntyre. And Morrison even did the impression of Mel Gibson from Braveheart. You then had AJ Styles and John Morrison doing a reenactment of what is going to happen at the pay-per-view. There was a sword involved, and AJ ended up stabbing Morrison, aka McIntyre, with the sword. And then Miz finished off the story by stating that he has money in the bank, and that's how it's going to end. AJ, of course, was not happy with this. He felt like this was not how the story was supposed to go. We then had Sheamus interrupt the festivities, and he said he is ready to fight with his fists. Styles ended up throwing a tree that was in the ring, I mentioned at the beginning. Styles threw that tree at Sheamus. Sheamus shook it off and then picked up an empty box that was set up, a Christmas package, and threw that at AJ, who actually took a bump from this empty box. I kid you not. This segment was pretty awful in my opinion. Now, TJS with a $3 super chat says, title of the first segment was major foreshadowing. Very true, TJS. The title, The Nightmare Before TLC, you could say that summed up Raw as a whole. This opening segment was rough. Here's my take on it. I'm not sure what it was designed to do. Was it designed to make me laugh? If so, it failed. Was it designed to make me want to see AJ Styles and Morrison and Miz get their asses kicked? No, it didn't. So that failed as well. What did it accomplish? Did it get me excited for TLC? No. So yeah, I think the segment was a big swing and a miss, but I know some people liked it. I thought it was very cringy. This led to our first match of the evening, which was AJ Styles versus Sheamus. And David, with a $3 super chat, David Estevez, thank you for that, says, been watching since 2010. Thank you for being great. I try. I really do try, and I very much appreciate you for tuning in, David. Thank you for being a longtime viewer. We had AJ Styles versus Sheamus. This was a pretty good match. It definitely made up for the opening segment, that's for sure. Why we could not just have this match and forget about the whole beginning part, I have no idea. Although somebody brought up an interesting point, and I'm not sure if WWE intended this. Maybe that's giving WWE too much credit, but Drew McIntyre never came down to help out Sheamus. Now, granted, Sheamus managed to take control of the situation, but you know, they could have done something where Sheamus got beat down and there was no Drew, and Sheamus can use that against Drew later down the line, but we'll see what happens with that. Match was good, although there was another eye-rolling moment on commentary because you had the announcers bring up how last week, you know, there was that attack on Pat Buck where Sheamus and Drew McIntyre slammed Buck through the table backstage. And it was revealed that there's no punishment, because WWE determined that Buck should not have tried to break up a fight backstage. He was wrong to do that, so therefore he got what he deserved. Dumb. Anyways, back to the match. Omos prevented Styles from getting powerbombed on the outside of the ring, so Omos was making his presence felt very early on. Styles worked over the knee of Sheamus. Sheamus did make a comeback, hit the 10 beats. He hit a clothesline off the top for a near fall. And then Styles managed to recover from that and put the calf crusher on. However, Sheamus did get to the rope. Sheamus attempted to take AJ and take him up to the top, but Styles escaped. And then when Sheamus was still on the second rope, Styles gave him a chop block, knocked Sheamus down to the mat, and then picked up the 1-2-3 victory, pinfall victory. After the match was over, Sheamus grabbed Styles, was going to try to get some retribution, but not in that way. But Omos, once again, came to the aid of Styles. Sheamus ended up having his feet tied up in the ropes. He was upside down with his feet in the ropes. He could not escape. Styles took a steel chair, started hitting Sheamus in the chest with it, hit Sheamus in the bad leg, and kept attacking Sheamus even after the referee broke it up. Here's the point where I would say, where was Drew McIntyre? Where was Sheamus's buddy to help him out as Sheamus was getting brutally beat down? We'll see if WWE follows up on this and actually has this as part of the storyline or not. It would make sense, no Drew McIntyre to make the save, but they have to have a good reason for it. You know, where was Drew? And that's the problem. They likely do not have a good storyline reason as to why Drew did not help his friend out. David Estevez with another $2 super chat. Thank you, David. Says, do you think The Miz will cash in on Sheamus and Sheamus costing Drew? I don't think The Miz is going to cash in the near future. Now, I'm not sure what the deal is with Miz. Can he cash in all the way through next October? Or does he have to cash in by May when Otis won Money in the Bank? Has that been made clear on WWE television? I'm not even sure. But if Miz has until October, it's definitely going to be a while. If it's May, then perhaps it could be sometime within the next month or so. We had the Hurt Business arriving, and they did their usual routine where they beat up one of the crew members. Well, not really beat up. This time, the guy was eating bro nuts, Matt Riddle's donuts, and was wearing a Matt Riddle hat. Lashley responded by grabbing some milk and dumping the milk over the crew member, but it kind of backfired on Lashley because Lashley got milk all over his fancy suit. So the joke is on Lashley, although you would think he's so well off he can afford a ton of those suits. It's no sweat to him. And then backstage, Riddle approached the New Day and Jeff Hardy, and Xavier got in a little joke about how G4 is not going to make a show called Riddle Me This. They had to get the Riddler somehow tied into Matt Riddle. You knew it was going to happen eventually. At least it's not his full-fledged gimmick, although maybe it would be better than this one. Riddle pitched the idea of him being Bro E instead of Big E. And he said he could be in their corner for the 6-man tag team match, and they actually agreed. They were actually cool with Matt Riddle being out there. See, they're smart. They are smart baby faces because they know the heels are always trying to use the numbers game. So even as annoying as Matt Riddle is, they got to have the guy out there with him. So we had this 6-man tag team match, Hurt Business versus New Day and Jeff Hardy. Faces had the upper hand early, and Xavier Woods was playing on the trombone. They were celebrating prematurely, so a little cocky there. So anyways, MVP interfered, giving the heels the advantage. They worked over Kofi for a while. Xavier Woods got knocked off the apron. Eventually, Jeff Hardy got the hot tag. Everybody then came in the ring, did all their big moves, dives over the top, the whole 9 yards. Cedric Alexander got several near falls to Hardy. Hardy started to make a comeback, but then Lashley tagged in, and with the help of Alexander knocking Hardy off the top rope, Lashley put on the Hurt Lock and scored the victory once again over Jeff Hardy by submission. The U.S. champion continuing to be a force in WWE. Hurt Business picks up the win. And a good match. No real issues with it. Backstage, we had Lana, who was scared to death about her match with Nia Jax, but Asuka was there to give her a pep talk. And the match took place. Nia Jax pretty much went right after Lana, slammed her down, but then Lana countered Nia with a Hurricane Rana, got Nia in the corner, and managed to knock Nia down to the mat and somehow got her in a pinfall and beat her. This match went about a minute and a half. Lana pulled up the upset victory over Nia Jax, but boy, did she ever pay the price. After the match was over, Shayna Baszler attacked Asuka in the backstage area and then came down to the ring. Nia and Shayna beat the crap out of Lana, double teamed her, stomped on her hand and foot I should say, and then Nia did the leg drop to the foot. Asuka eventually recovered and made the save, but the damage, as they say, had been done. And yes, as Curtis Butler in the chat room points out, Miro taught Lana that pin. They practiced it the night before, and they both won. So you can come to your own conclusion on how that played out. This was interesting because they later announced that Lana is out of the match. She's out of TLC now, and there will be a substitute. Makes me think there was no intentions of changing the titles, but they want to keep pushing Lana, and they're changing the match. I mean, that's my gut feeling on this. And we are going to do predictions tomorrow night, Tuesday, if you're watching this on Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And I heard from the rumor mill that a man from the North Pole might be part of that predictions video. So should be an interesting one. Not that it wouldn't be an interesting video, but even more interesting. TJS for the $3 super chat says, which Hardy do you think is paid more currently? Has to be Jeff. I would be shocked if Matt Hardy's making more in AEW what Jeff is in WWE. I would be very surprised. Highly unlikely. We had Elias do one of his segments in the ring with his new bodyguard, the ever popular Jackson Riker, although I'm sure he's popular with TJS. And you can come to your own conclusion about that. Elias talked about how he was electrocuted 2 weeks ago in that match against Jeff Hardy, and he's had visions of his purpose. And he said that Riker knows the universal truth, and said that Riker is going to be there for him. Riker talked about how Elias's music changed him. And because of that, he is there to stop the interruptions and stop the attacks. Elias was going to sing a song dedicated to Lana, but was interrupted by R-Truth. And R-Truth apologized for interrupting on Main Event last week, which WWE did not even show us a replay of that. So unless you watched Main Event, you really had no idea what happened with that. So anyways, R-Truth apologized for interrupting, but of course he was interrupting to apologize. And Elias attempted to start his song, but then the 24/7 guys ran down. Riker ended up beating up a couple of them and throwing one of them over the top to the other guys. And yeah, Jackson Riker getting a renewed push now on Monday Night Raw, and Twitter was not too thrilled with that. I'm not really thrilled with it just because I think he kind of sucks. He's not that interesting of a professional wrestler. I was never big on Gunner to begin with. Like, of all the guys to pick up from Impact, like, he was not one of the guys I would have chosen. So yeah, he's getting a push, and we'll see how long that lasts. But, you know, for those of you upset about it, fear not. He'll probably be jobbed out in 2 or 3 months, tops. We had a recap of the Randy Orton and Fiend storyline, and they were hyping up Bray Wyatt coming out to do a field trip with the puppets from the Firefly Funhouse. Keith Lee located Miz and Morrison backstage, and they did a coin toss, which Miz and Morrison won, but it's the only thing that they will win the entire evening. So we had this match, and Miz and Morrison were able to wrestle without having to tag in and out. So they could both be in the ring at the same time. There was one very awkward moment in this match where Lee was going for a pounce, and Morrison started to take the bump over the top rope before Lee even touched him. I think Lee barely grazed him, but Morrison was already sending himself over the top rope. And then Miz was there to catch Morrison, but didn't really catch him. Like, I don't even think they made any contact, but Miz still fell down. So the whole sequence was not very pretty. Match did pick up after that, though. And basically the story here was Miz and Morrison were trying to get Keith Lee down, the big man, and eventually they got him down, but it took a lot of effort. But then Keith Lee would get right back in it. They tried to put him in a double submission. He got out of that. He double suplexed them. But then with a chop block, they managed to get him down. And they both got on top of him. So 2 people on one, and they pinned him. Again, Twitter was not thrilled with this. A lot of people upset. Was Keith Lee buried here? Chat room, what do you think? Was he buried? Yes or no? And tell me why. As I give people a few moments to respond, the game is on 100 with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. It says, WWE just ruined Lee with the loss to Jokers, Miz and Morrison. Even Strowman handled them in June of this year. Thank you, WWE, for ruining Lee. Sarcastic. So here's my take on it. I think the match should not have been booked in the first place. I'm not surprised by it. I don't think it's going to kill Lee. He lost to 2 people, one of them a former WWE champion. But at the same time, what have Miz and Morrison done lately? Pretty much nothing. They've been booked like a lower card comedy act, maybe mid-card comedy act at best. They haven't been booked like world champions or anything even close to it. Yeah, Miz has the money in the bank, but it's a joke. It's comedy. So yeah, I wouldn't say that Keith Lee was buried, but yeah, really wasn't the most effective match here. Like, who got over here? Miz and Morrison? No. Did Keith Lee get over? No. It just was kind of just a waste of time. So that's my opinion of that match. I do think Lee will recover from it. Psycho Jet Black with a $5 super chat says, Do you think WWE does not push down Morrison because of Melina cheating on him with Batista and they see that as a sign of weakness? I've heard that rumor. I don't think that's the case. I'm going to tell you this. I think it's probably the fact that Morrison is not the best talker. He's entertaining with Miz, no doubt about it, but I don't think they see Morrison as that guy that can really be the flagship. And I think the lack of the verbal skills have held Morrison down more than anything else. He's a phenomenal athlete, but it's Miz that really carries the segments, and Morrison and Miz have that chemistry together, so that works. But yeah, I think Morrison just not being a great promo is what has hurt him the most in WWE. Mr. Anderson says that Vince ruined Lee, and Oofman says Strowman destroys Miz and Morrison, yet Keith Lee can't. Well, Keith Lee, in storyline is still on the rise. Strowman already world champion, guy that beat the guy that beat the Fiend. That's what I was trying to say there. Maud W says they see Morrison the same way as they see Ziggler. Yeah, in a way. I definitely think that they're on the same level. Kind of like a guy you can rely on to have great matches, but you really don't want to push the guy as a top guy. And Ace in his familiar vlog says, did Rock get buried losing a handicap match against the Dudley Boys? Well, I mentioned The Rock on Twitter. The Rock lost a ton of matches. The Rock jobbed all the time. But The Rock was The Rock. He was one of the few guys that could lose a lot and still be a top draw and be a top guy. Most guys in WWE need to be protected. Even the Brock Lesnars. If Brock Lesnar lost a bunch of handicap matches, that would hurt his stock as a monster. Would Brock Lesnar ever be booked to lose to Miz and Morrison? Hell no. Never. Would not happen. So yeah, if Keith Lee is being built up as this monster, he's limitless, he's the future of the company, well, didn't really do much for him in this instance. Now, if he's going to be this mid-carder who might win the U.S. title at some point, then will not hurt him. But the question is, are they trying to build up Keith Lee as somebody potentially at Brock Lesnar's level? Doesn't look like it. So moving on here, we had Bray Wyatt appear for an in-ring segment, as I mentioned. He was wearing a very cute Christmas sweater and had the Fiend design on the back. All that good stuff. Very lovely. We had the puppets at ringside, and he issued an apology to Randy Orton. He said that things got a little bit carried away. However, there will be no fun and games at the TLC pay-per-view. He said there will just be sadness and pain. He then had some jokes for the Viper to try and lighten the mood before the pay-per-view. He said, how do you measure a Viper? By inches. Because they have no feet. He told a few more jokes, and I'm not sure what the hell is going on with this. Like, it felt like a heelish promo, kind of like the beginning of the show, where he's out here doing this comedy, and like, you kind of want to see him get his ass kicked, but I think he's the good guy here. I don't know. It's very confusing to me. And I'm going off the piped-in crowd noise. They put in the cheers whenever the Fiend's out there and the boos for Orton. So that's what I'm going by, that Fiend is the babyface. Just felt really weird. The jokes made me want to see Randy Orton kick his ass, which would be the opposite of what it should be accomplishing. We did have Randy Orton appear on the big screen, and he said for the first time in a while last week, the Fiend outmaneuvered him, but it will not happen at TLC. And then Orton said he wanted to play a game. He's like Jigsaw from the Saw movies. He said he wants to play a game of hide and seek, and Bray Wyatt accepted the challenge. Psycho Jet Black with the $2 super chat says, who will face the Fiend at WrestleMania? I'd like to see the Fiend versus Edge. I think that would be a cool match, but I think it's going to be Orton versus Edge. I hope that's not the case, because I'm just tired of Randy Orton versus Edge. I want to see something different. If Edge is going to wrestle some more matches, let's put him in there with some new people. Tic Tat Tat says maybe Drew versus the Fiend. Well, if Lesnar doesn't come back, that's also an option. Next up we had, oh boy, Psycho Jet Black's favorite, Ricochet versus Mace, with Ali on commentary and the rest of the The Goon Squad was out there. Retribution. Slapjack and T-Bar tried to interfere. They got on the apron. Ricochet knocked them off. But then stupid babyface, he gets distracted. Mace takes advantage. Ricochet did kick out of one move, so it wasn't a total squash for him. But Ali yelled at Mace to finish him. So Mace did with his move, which is called the Time Bomb. And Mace picked up the 1-2-3 victory over, I guess, a somewhat game Ricochet. He did kick out of one big move. And after the match, Ali got in Ricochet's face and said, "It will not be over until Ricochet joins Retribution." Yawn. I am so ready for this to be over with. Every week the Ricochet storyline continues. I just get sadder and sadder. But at least Ricochet is getting TV time. Good for him. Ali, too. Still, I would like this to be over. Like, remember when these guys were wreaking havoc? And granted, it was very lame at times, but they went from wreaking havoc and now they're just acting like normal competitors. Like, it doesn't even make any sense, but whatever. And backstage, we had a bunch of sequences where Bray Wyatt was looking for Randy Orton. One time he ran into Matt Riddle, who had some other ideas. One idea was called the Bronouns, and Bray was not interested. Bray took off. And then Rambling Rabbit appeared, and Riddle referred to him as Baby Broda, like Baby Yoda. And then you had Riddle bring in a carrot and had Rabbit sign the carrot. Yeah. Psycho Jet Black with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. Psycho Jet Black says, "If there was a crowd right now, my toilet flushing down the drain would have made more noise than the crowd cheering for anyone in this match." Oh yeah, for sure. I'm willing to bet that there would be no crowd reaction for that Ricochet match with Mace. Like, the whole Ricochet angle, I think WWE would have dropped it by now if we actually had crowds, because I can't imagine people reacting to this stuff. Like, I could just see them being silent crickets, and that would be the end of it. But that's the thing now. With no crowds, WWE can kind of just do whatever they want and pipe in their own noise and make it seem like it's more over than it is. We had Shayna Baszler versus Dana Brooke. And this went like a minute. Nia Jax interfered right away, causing a disqualification. Mandy Rose made her return with a kendo stick, but Shayna got the upper hand. Then Asuka finally appeared, and the faces ran off Shayna and Nia. We still don't know who the new partner is for Asuka at the pay-per-view, nor do I really care at this point. We'll talk about it. Hopefully we'll know something for the predictions video, but I feel like we're not going to, because WWE tends to announce things last minute. We then had R-Truth backstage with Husky the Pig, and Bray Wyatt appeared, and R-Truth said that Bray Wyatt was Husky's dad. Then Bray took his leave, and Bray went into this room where there was just a rocking chair. He sat down in the rocking chair like the old Bray Wyatt days, and that's when Randy Orton snuck up behind Bray, put him into this box, and then Orton poured gas onto the box, set the box on fire. But as the flames were going, and it appeared like Orton was murdering Bray Wyatt, all of a sudden the Fiend popped out of the flaming box. He put the mandible claw on Randy Orton, and the Fiend got the upper hand, the final upper hand before the pay-per-view. So does this mean Randy Orton's winning on Sunday? Like, I think that's not the right way to go. I think the Fiend needs to win more than Randy, but yeah, it comes off like Randy has no chance to beat the Fiend, which makes me always think, well, that means Randy Orton's going to find a way to win. And maybe why WWE changed the match with Lana, because, the storyline is that Lana has no chance, and maybe they didn't want to change the titles, so they get her out of the match and do something different. But yeah, I'm hoping Fiend wins, but yeah, this one I don't know. Segment was interesting, though. I'll say that much. At least it was something for us to talk about. We had fire. There you go. We had MVP versus Riddle, and another quick squash match. Not much to say about it. Riddle hit a knee strike, and then the floating bro beat MVP in something like a minute. And Lashley ran down after the match. Riddle managed to escape with his bro nuts. And I guess we're getting a U.S. title match on the pay-per-view. I don't even know if they announced anything, but one would think that's going to be on the pay-per-view. They've been building up towards it. Then we had our main event segment of the evening, the TLC Ascension segment. And no, Victor and Connor did not return. We had ladders and tables and chairs set up around the ring. Drew McIntyre and AJ Styles face to face. Styles talked about how it took 19 years for Drew McIntyre to become world champion, maybe because Drew cannot handle the pressure. Styles said that he's been in TLC matches and won, and that Drew will be kissing the title goodbye. Drew responded by saying this was a match he has always wanted. It's the first time the two of them will ever be one-on-one in a match in WWE or wrestling, period, I think. And Drew said that AJ's wrong. He does thrive under pressure. He can handle it. And he said he is going to tear AJ Styles apart. He will do whatever it takes. But the question is, will AJ do the same? The title was then placed on that holder, raised above the ring. And AJ said, what's going to happen if it's not just him that McIntyre has to face? This led to Miz and Morrison coming into the ring. Drew McIntyre managed to fight them off 3-on-1. He hit the Claymore on Miz, Claymore onto Morrison, who was holding a ladder. But then Omos threw the steel steps into the ring, and this distracted Drew. He turned his back to AJ. Stupid babyface. AJ attacks McIntyre, lays him out, beats him up with all the TLC weapons. McIntyre was laid out on a table in the ring. Styles climbed the ladder, jumped off with a flying elbow through the table, and then AJ climbed up the ladder and retrieved the WWE Championship. Pretty obvious this is standard here. Build up the heel. AJ Styles ain't winning that title. I'm very confident of that. Go home segment was fine, but didn't fool me. AJ ain't winning that title. Some people might think so, though, watching this. And I think it was a fairly effective segment for the uninitiated, the people that haven't been watching WWE for 20 years. So yeah, Drew's winning. It was a fine closing segment, though. Overall, again, average Raw, not great, not terrible. Few things that were not so good, but overall, just pretty standard by 2020 standards. Psycho Jet Black with a $2 super chat says, what if AJ fights The Miz for Money in the Bank at the Royal Rumble? I don't think they're going to do another match with the contract on the line. Maybe Miz cashes in on Sunday and we can leave the Money in the Bank concept in 2020, but we'll see. I'm going to give the show, just to see, average Raw. Mr. Anderson gives it an A+, Ace in his familiar vlogs with a B-. Dr. NXT Scorpio says it nearly put him to sleep, C-. Marvin with a B-. Curtis Butler with a C-. Kaka main storylines. J-Spin 401 with a C-. Daniel and Matt with a C, Israel Diaz with a B minus, and Mark Matthews with a -5 stars. And Michael Wayne with a C minus, and Maud W with a C. Lucha Libre Gaming Guy with a B. TLC is this Sunday. Again, check out the predictions video when it goes up. Join us live. If you're watching Tuesday, it's Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. If you're watching after Tuesday, watch it on demand. And of course, stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest wrestling news and rumors, some bikini photos, some videos of old school wrestling, lots of stuff on the site. It's not just news and rumors. There's a whole lot you could check out. Take care, everybody. Enjoy your week. Stay positive. Be safe. And I will see you guys next time.